Okay, we are live. Welcome, everybody, to another live conversation. Today, we have an amazing guest. His name is Dan Kirby. And during these live conversations, I like to chat with people about a particular topic, about their experience from coaching as well. And Dan actually got to experience a coaching session and had a profound moment and experience from that. And so we're going to dive into that and how you can face things head on in your life and business. And so, Dan, I'll let you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll hop right in. How's that?
That sounds good. I'm Dan Kirby. I live up in Michigan. I am a tattooer. I've been tattooing for about 12 years. And actually, my mentor signed me up for a coaching session with James. He had some breakthroughs in a private session and wanted me to experience the same thing.
Cool. I love it. And if anyone is interested in, checking out your work or receiving a tattoo or inquiring about that, where would you direct them for you?
Probably my Instagram would be easiest. It's right at the bottom of my thing here, Dank66.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome. So let's hop in, right? Because you had a mentor that signed you up for a coaching session, and you were actually interested in that, and there was something that you had shared with them, and they thought that it could be good. Are you open to sharing? Yeah, let me know. You can share if you want. You could share the general sense of what the coaching session was about. You don't have to share who it was about, but just what the general session was about for you, and getting to the bottom too.
Getting into it, I had no idea what it was about originally. I thought it was kind of going to be. I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe it was like a look at a business type of a plan, or I wasn't really sure. So when we got into it and you started asking questions, I was like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. So much more personal and deep, I guess, instead of like a business broad advice type of a call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I think a lot of times when people think of business coaching, they think of people just talking about strategies and tactics, and those things are helpful. But in my experience, there's these things that pop up in our life or people's lives, and it's actually the thing that has been taking all our time, energy, and attention. And we were, after some digging and some question asking, we were able to get to what some of those things were for you. And there was an experience, and there was just a relationship that you're wanting to have a better relationship in your life. You're wanting to have a big difference made. And so as we were going through that, and as I was asking the questions, there was an element which I notice, sometimes, where people are in this in-between state where they might say, hey, I'm experiencing this coaching. I'm going to take this and, I'll see what I do with it. And you were actually willing to step on the court, right? Because I think the question I asked was, do you actually want to just do this now? Do you want to pick up the phone and call this person? And what was that like for you? Because I know a lot of times when people experience coaching or sessions with people, it's very much talking about the thing and not doing about the thing. What was that like for you to hop on the court in that way?
I love talking about doing the thing. I do it all the time. Talking about doing it is the fun part. The doing the thing is the scary part. And when you were like, okay, I'm going to grab some water, and when we come back, I think you should go ahead and make that phone call. I was like, oh, now? So definitely a stomach dropping, heart beating type of a moment. Yeah, so I'm glad you suggested that I do that.
Yeah, and
I'm not going to say you made me, but it was a suggestion that I took.
yeah, and you chose to take that, and run with it. And what was it like to face something in your life head on? Because a lot of times, like you said, we do talk about doing the things, but we don't always necessarily do them. And I think this is a muscle that you've grown continually, which is facing these things in your life head on, whether it's in your business or in your personal life. And sometimes it can feel easier in our business. Um, what's it, looking back, what was that like for you to get over that hump and choose to do that?
I would say empowering. Kind of like when we got off the call and you said, well, that was one of the scariest conversations for you to have. So do you feel like you could talk to anyone about anything now? And I was like, yeah, I guess I do. So yeah, that was a good breakthrough moment for sure.
Yeah.
There was another moment that I had of describing that person in the past and then getting that person on the phone and them being basically a completely different person than the one I described. And I had a I had a moment recently with this coffee cup, and I bought this cup for my wife like we'll say 15 years ago from Starbucks. And I was like, this is a very sturdy cup. It has lasted a long time. It doesn't leak. It's a good cup. The only thing I don't love about this cup is that it's pink. And as you look at it, it's not pink. You don't see any pink. But when I bought this
Yeah.
cup, it was a shiny metallic pink. Well, over the years, all that pink has gone away, but you see the little remnants of it at the very bottom.
Yeah.
So this pink cup, this cup is pink in my head, but it's not pink at all anymore. So that moment of being like, well, that was 20 something years ago, and that person has changed from the person you knew before. Um, just a moment of being like, oh yeah, that cup isn't pink anymore. So yeah, just a good metaphor, I guess.
Yeah, well, I actually really do love that metaphor because we do have, these moments or experiences with people in our life. And sometimes we tie them to that moment or that time period. And, we're only looking through the lens that we're looking through, and we don't know what, someone is necessarily going through. Um, and especially when time has passed, we may be carrying an old definition or an old idea of that person, and we're actually holding on to it so closely that we aren't able to see that they've changed, right? Or we aren't able to see the differences because we're only um, looking through that one lens, or we're holding on to that one belief so closely that it's actually challenging to see anything else, that it's challenging to let anything else in. And so I love that metaphor of the pink cup, because it's still an amazing sturdy cup. It's just not pink anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you were able to, through what we processed and through taking the action, you were actually open to seeing that this person had changed, that they were different, and you were able to experience them differently and actually receive a lot of what you were desiring. Is that right?
Oh, certainly. And I've noticed that a lot with clients too. There's someone recently, and she kept saying, she said, "Oh yeah, well, we'll say my kid's grandma." And I said, "Okay." And then a little later, she said, "Well, my mom." And I said, "Oh, okay." And then she never addressed her as like her own person. So eventually, I said, "What's your mom's name?" And she was like, Joy. And I said, "I think that's the first time you've like addressed her as being her own person, not your
Mm.
mom or grandma or." And that was I could see it in her eyes. It was a moment of like, oh my gosh, she is a person. Like she is not just my mom or annoying grandma or whatever. She has her own life and her own stuff going on. And I think that's important to realize.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I love about you. Even the metaphor is an example in that story is you have an amazing power. Um, beyond just someone receiving, a tattoo, you actually have conversations that are life changing with people and really, connect with them. And I think that's one of your superpowers that allows you to even be open to those shifts and changes, which I love. Let's say someone is, whether it's a relationship in their own life or in their business, and it's something that maybe they've been avoiding or holding on to. Do you have any tips or recommendations for them in terms of, facing things in their life and business head on?
I guess looking at the actual facts of the situation instead of through a filter of what you think. I don't know. Yeah, not looking through some sort of filter of judgment or past experiences or whatnot. Because, like I said, this cup it's hard for me to see this as a silver cup. Like in my head, there's still the little bits of pink on there and stuff, but there isn't. And it's like getting my brain to that point of like, it's silver. There's no pink left on it. It's tough. It's weird. Because in your brain, it's set in that it's pink, it's pink, it's pink. So, yeah, your brain's a weird, powerful tool. So
Yeah. It wants to fill in sort of like these blind spots or these gaps. And so it sounds like, what you're really sharing is no matter the moment or no matter the person, especially if it's been going on for a period of time, just to make sure to take sort of like some reflection time to say, what are the facts? And, how have I been seeing this? And what could I see differently? Or what are some things that I might be missing, right? Because the questions that we ask ourselves, our brain wants to fill that in. And so it may have just been automatically filling things in. And that reflection time and those questions, right, that you're talking about help us see stuff that maybe we didn't even notice was there before, or maybe something's right in front of us and it isn't what we're saying it is anymore.
and
We're
sometimes
actually,
those
yeah, go ahead.
sometimes those things feel good to realize, and then sometimes they feel bad to realize. So
Yeah.
I've had moments recently where I usually say, "Oh, I love perspective. I love different perspectives." Just like, but then when that different perspective makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong, or haven't been doing something the right way, I'm like, "Oh, well, that's not the perspective I wanted." But it is important to see things from all sorts of different perspectives because they are different for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that. There's times in business where, I'll hear different coaches sharing something, and they might be actually sharing something that's true. And sometimes it's the delivery of whether I'll receive that or not. And then other times it might not necessarily be what we're looking for, but we need to hear. And so, yeah, I completely relate to that example.
That
Um,
happened. That happened to me recently. It was in the past I would go on a trip and I wouldn't really plan much. We'll just see where I end up, see where I end up sleeping, no big deal. And which felt freeing. Uh, but then looking back on it, Josh Carlton was talking about um, people being like, "Oh, I just let it, let the universe take care of it." And then he said, "Well, that's all your friends in the background, like cleaning up after you, like
hmm.
figuring out a place for you to sleep and figuring out." And I was like, "Oh man, well that sounds way worse than just being cool and free." But then I realized there it does put the responsibility of somebody finding a place for someone to sleep and all that stuff. So yeah, um, that was a womp womp perspective. But the next trip I took, I had everything booked, and it was way more freeing to have everything ready to go and already booked than being like, I'm free because I don't have a place booked. So in the end, it was way better. But at the time, it stung a little. So
Yeah, that's amazing, especially because I think we're all in our own um, phases of this journey. And there was a time, yeah, there was a past period of time where I had traveled around to different states as well, and sometimes I wasn't, um, booking a place to stay until like the day before or something like that, or someone would say, "Oh, I actually found a place for you." So I relate to that a lot, and I think we're each in our own phase and journey, and then we hear, someone says something that just kind of lands. And so I love what Joshua Carlton shared there, which makes me think of, because sometimes people do have this idea of the universe that they're just going to flow with it, when what I've learned about this idea of whether it's universe, God, source, whatever you want to call it, um, as you move towards it, it moves towards you. And so that's why I love this idea of, even if it's just exploring the idea of where to stay or what to plan, the more we move towards something, it's moving towards us, and the universe is delivering that more and more as we move towards it. And so that's kind of the idea that I love of the universe. How did that discovery for you, or hearing that from Joshua Carlton, shift that idea for you? I know you said the idea of friends cleaning up in the background was one, but how did it shift your thinking on what you're moving towards and what you're doing?
It was it wasn't instantaneous, but it was after taking the trip of having everything all planned out and like a place to stay, and um, just realizing that freedom that I thought I was feeling of not having anything booked, the freedom of having things booked was way more a sense of freedom, I guess. So,
Yeah.
but like I said, it stung at the time. I was like, no, that's not. No, I mean, I guess people are cleaning up after me. Well, dang it. Okay, yeah, fine. I guess I'll
Yeah.
take care of my own stuff and figure out a place to stay before I get there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Action, it's funny. I think a lot of times we can avoid structure and action, when I think that's a great discovery, right? That structure and action can actually be the most freeing things, because it's building a foundation, and it is allowing us to actually do whatever we want, right? So there's the nuance or the difference between not having to do anything and being able to do whatever we want. Does that make sense?
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because things are taken care of, so we can do whatever we want.
Like
Um,
the first one sounds cool, but the second one sounds great. Like,
right.
yeah, I don't have to do anything. Well, cool, but like I can do anything I want. That sounds awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience, and giving these recommendations, because I think this will make a huge difference for people. Um, just even the idea of taking the action, taking the steps, having some structure, um, facing things head on, not just seeing things as they were, but as they are right now. So you actually know how to work with them. What's the difference that you've noticed in your life since we've had that session, and since you've started to shift your approach in these different ways?
Hmm. Relationships, the relationship with uh, even my sister. Just relationships seem to be growing more deeper, better type of, I don't know, like an actual communication instead of a how's your day, blah blah blah. Um, yeah, it's tough to pinpoint something exactly, but I think my relationships are growing better. Um, I'm still working on communicating and having what I said be translated into what I meant, I guess. But
Hmm.
I think we all struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Really.
empowering, I guess, was the main word. It was empowering to call that person and be in charge of the conversation, and then end the conversation, and then later on feel the residual ripples from it, or get texts from other people saying how that person was affected and has changed their attitude, and all sorts of good stuff. So
Yeah. And I really love the way that you share that, especially the word empowering, because it makes me think of that example of the universe that you were talking about. Instead of just, something happened and kind of like carrying it through whatever period of time, it's actually saying, what, I can have a cause in the matter. I can be empowered. I can take the actions to create what I want in my life. And for that to actually be received is, so wonderful. And yeah, I just really love the way that you paint that picture. And we absolutely all do have times where we're improving our communication. And even when we think we have it down, sometimes we communicate with someone else, or there's a different moment, and then we're like, okay, we did not have that down. And so it's always this evolution. And the more that we focus on creating healthy relationships, the more we focus on improving our communication with other people, things can only get better. And I forget who it was, but I think there's some quote: the only thing that's going to be different in your life in 5 years is the books you've read and the people that you have. And that, for some reason, that one always just really stuck out to me. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience. And, just again, if someone's interested in inquiring about a tattoo or checking out your work, you said Instagram is the best?
Yeah, usually. Yep. Just shoot me a message, or it's usually the easiest.
Okay, cool. And it's the handle is DANK 66. Yeah.
Yep. Dan Kirby,
Okay.
Dan K, Dank 66. Yep. Yep.
Cool. Perfect.
Cool.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
thank
I
you.
hope everyone has a great day. And if you're interested in coaching, or want to check out more of these conversations, you can go to jmwhiteman, WIGHTMAN.com. There's a whole bunch of testimonials that shares what I do, in case you're like, what does James do? You are the program, and I'm helping you create what you want in your life, not just some prepackaged thing that I'm trying to sell you. So check it out. And thank you all for taking the time to listen in.